again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Geoff Monin.
And I am Matt A.K. Stormageddon.
And you're listening to our 2025 End of the Year special. And it has certainly been 2025, hasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like I make this joke every year, but I will continue to make it because I will continue to make this mistake. But we are recording this in 2025 to release in 2026. And there's going to be a lot of this year, this past year, last year mix-ups because, I don't know, I can't keep that shit straight on a good day. I will endeavor to say 2025 so I don't make that mistake. But we are excited to wrap up this past year. I feel like I say this every year, but I feel like this was an incredible year for the podcast. Some incredible games came out. Also, probably still one of the worst years for the gaming industry. And I think that continues to be true until it's not. Well, I mean, something we had this year that we haven't had in a few years that we got to celebrate actually in real time on the podcast too, which we hadn't done in a while, was the release of a new game console. With the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, we were timely enough that we both got one at launch-ish. That we were able to podcast about it within a few weeks of release. It felt good to cover some current events because it's fun to jump on that. But also, it was an interesting console launch. I felt like a lot of people needed to justify this purchase, which technically you don't. It's your money. This seemed to be a continued trend and something we noted last year with Nintendo seeming to run a little differently, to be more commercial, less whimsy. And that's kind of just part of where the brand is headed. And not to say there weren't games full of whimsy that came out this year. There were a ton of great releases. Like even I, who love my Nintendo Switch 2 and play it as one of my prominent consoles, did feel like it was lacking a certain something this year. And while I enjoy it, I understand why some people feel disappointed by its release slate, what it has, what it does different, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when we did our episode kind of talking about the Switch 2, if I recall correctly, my conclusion on it was it's a lovely device. It's a nice console. It makes some things better, but is it a must-have? Is it doing something new and exciting? Not really. If that's not what I said on the episode, it's what I'm saying now because it's been long enough and we haven't had a full year of it yet. And you know what? There have been some good games that have come out for it, but none of them are on my top 10 list this year.
Yeah, one of them is for me, and it's mostly because there's a bias that pushed it up there, and we'll get to it when we get to that game. I will say that while I enjoy the system, I have a conflict of why I enjoy it. Like, I wanted a sequel to the Switch because to me, the Nintendo Switch is one of my favorite video game consoles of all time. Since I was a little kid, I wanted a home console that also detached and was portable, and that's what we finally got. But as you and I talked more about handheld consoles this year, talked about the loss of dedicated handheld games, I do lament some of that. And also, while the Wii to the Wii U, we've talked about this before, was a funky jump, they were trying things. And something we've lost, I feel, with Nintendo from the Switch to the Switch 2 is experimentation. Now, the mouse controls are something new. I've had a chance to test them out a little bit. I was given a review code for the System Shock remake on Nintendo Switch 2, and I've played a little bit of it. I need to get further into it. But one of the things they highlight early on is the mouse controls for it. They work really well, and you can do the mouse on your leg or on a table. Like, the surface doesn't really matter. So it's a neat toy. You know, there's no 1-2 Switch equivalent of like, here's the gimmick with these Joy-Cons, here's the game that's based around it, or Wii Sports, or Wii Sports Resort, or anything like that that leads into that gimmick. Arguably, now that Metroid Prime 4 is out, that's the one that leads into that gimmick, and admittedly, I haven't picked it up yet. And so that might be that step in that direction, but as of launch and as of the first 6 months of the console's life cycle, it just didn't feel like there was that Nintendo whimsy that usually is with a new console.
Well, yeah, they released Welcome Tour, and then they sold it to us.
Yeah, it wasn't a pack-in, which I had forgotten about because of that, actually.
Mm-hmm. And I think is, again, indicative of where things feel like they're going with Nintendo, and certainly how I feel about it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I really liked Donkey Kong. I didn't finish it, though, and I think that's part of it. I like Mario Kart World, and I played quite a bit of that, but there was no Nintendo game that really captured me except the one that made it into my top 10, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But admittedly, that game being in my top 10 is because of that game, not because it was on Switch 2. And I know tons of folks who play, because it had a Switch 1 version, also loved it on Switch 1. I'm excited to see where the Nintendo Switch 2 goes in a full calendar release year from January to December. I'm sure there'll be some exciting announcements in February or March, usually is when they do their next direct. And so we'll see. There's definitely a new Mario game coming. I don't know when, but for sure it's on the horizon somewhere. Maybe even a new Zelda. We'll see. even though I feel high on the console, that I'm not as high as maybe I think I am.
Mm.
I didn't pick up some of the landmark titles I thought I would. I'm the one Kirby Air Ride sicko. It's me. And yet I haven't picked up the sequel yet, which by all means is incredible and an incredible sequel. It has a story mode. City Trial's better than it's ever been. But I don't have that urge to play online with friends because I just don't feel like there's that groundswell. And Kirby Air Ride came out at a time when local co-op was still supreme on the GameCube.
Right.
It doesn't exist anymore. What will probably happen is if I know I'm coming to see you maybe at some point next year, or I'm going to be at a convention, then I'll pick up Kirby's Air Ride and be able to play it with friends. But like to play a racing game on myself, it's why I didn't put much time into Mario Kart World. In that same way, I didn't rush to buy Metroid Prime 4. Now, that was also because I was scrambling to finish my Demon School review, which came out great. And I'll probably get Prime 4 at some point this year. It's something we've talked about many times with the FOMO feeling that I know you, I, Dave, and other peers have talked about quite a bit. Once you get through that first week of FOMO, mostly it disappears. And if it doesn't, then that's a true driver that you really want this thing. And that's what happened. I was excited to play Prime 4. I like Prime 1. I never played 2 or 3. But now that I'm past it, I'm like, maybe I do wait. Maybe I do play 2 and 3. Or like watch some more content or two on 2 and 3 and then pick it up. Like there's going to be a slew of games coming out next year that has my head exploding. We'll talk about that later. I really like my purchase of the Switch 2, but like you, I find it hard to justify to other people, especially with other handhelds existing that can fill that role depending on the console you own. The PlayStation Portal is more useful than I initially thought because it can play games off the cloud. It can stream pretty well to you as long as you have an internet connection. Same with the Steam Deck is kind of an all-purpose console that is really useful and kind of easier to recommend because you can play Steam games plus totally legally emulate games on it as well. So yeah, the Switch 2 is the kind of this in-between place, even though I wanted a sequel to that console because I love the portability of it. I am starting to feel that fatigue a bit. So I'm curious to see where we go in 2026.
And the fact that we did do retrospectives on both the Vita and the 3DS, as you alluded to before, kind of getting us both thinking about what dedicated handhelds used to do.
Yeah.
If they'd brought back some of the 3DS kind of carrying it around, like not just from the TV to sitting on the couch, but encouraging taking it places.
Yes.
Who's to say? And that might be something they instill in the next version of it or something else. But yeah, I definitely playing Mario Kart World. It might be my favorite Mario Kart.
It's a great one, yeah.
But it is something where you need the local co-op. It's not something that Sarah and I typically will face off with each other. It's a group thing. Yeah. So anytime I went up to visit family in New Hampshire, I brought it with me. I brought the dock. I brought everything. And we had a lot of fun with it. But when my brother was like, do I need one? No, you don't. And I stand by that. And all of these things where it's just kind of, it's not bad. It's just damned by faint praise. And hopefully the praise picks up some kindling and some spark in the next year.
Yeah. I mean, with any new console, first of all, very few consoles are worth it in their first year. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, I think, were only wanted and lauded because of the pandemic and because they were so hard to find. With the Nintendo Switch 2, it's a little different. But this isn't a Nintendo Switch 2 podcast. I'm sure we'll have tons more to say about it in the new year. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention all of the layoffs that happened this year. Something that I am saying, and this is not to damn anyone who still wants to support this company. We fight our battles against capitalism in our own way. But I am basically done with Rockstar. After their most recent round of union busting, literally firing people who were trying to fire a union, once they got wind of them firing them a union and then making some lame excuse of like, oh, inappropriate conduct. And we had, this is the same company that crunched their employees to make Red Dead Redemption 2, a game I swore I'd never play, and then removed the ones who couldn't hack it from the credits. This is not new for Rockstar, this terrible behavior. This is all to say, yes, I'm done with them. I'm not buying Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm not going to give people a hard time if they want to support it. Because again, I'm trying to punish the higher-ups, but you're also punishing the devs, and you have to fight your own battles. You know, there's a lot of on the internet, how dare you buy this thing and support that thing and blah, blah, blah. I get why we want to do it. We want to fight these battles. We want to band together. But shaming an individual for their purchase choice in the midst of a capitalist hellscape, it doesn't solve anything. But that said, if you want more information, People Make Games has been doing incredible coverage on the Rockstar stuff. It makes me sick. And I don't know how else to fight back other than to not buy those games. Look, I have read some incredible praise about Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. I have friends who have done voices in both of those games, and I want to hear it. And maybe someday I'll look up the cutscenes. But like, I need to draw a line in the sand somewhere to feel somewhat human. I got rid of Spotify this year because they were running ice ads. We're no longer promoting it in our feed. If you listen there, thank you for listening. Like, again, you're making the best choices you can. Apple's not a much better company, but they're not running ice ads. We're making our choices where we can. But this is just, for me, I think something I need to share in 2025 because it does feel almost hopeless to fight these battles. And I think maybe sharing my difficulty and where I'm drawing the line might help others figure out where their lines are.
It's trying to fight for the ideals that we want. And certainly in games, there are more than enough games that are coming out that have come out. I certainly have a litany of games that I wish I had played at all or played more. It makes it a lot easier in situations like this to go, well, I don't care how hyped that is. That's 100 hours I just got back so I can play other things. There is that, voting with your wallet. There is that idea of, certainly for what we do here, we do point these things out, but our philosophy is much more, we would rather spend time boosting smaller things that are worth playing rather than sit here bashing bigger things that we don't like. We acknowledge it, and then we can spend the next 15 minutes that could have been a news item talking about other games that are worth your time. And we do like the practices as we know them when we talk about them.
We try to keep the conversation mostly positive because there's plenty of negativity on the internet, but I think highlighting the bad stuff that's happened this year is important too. Like Electronic Arts laying off 300 to 400 more people.
Yep.
Their potential acquisition by a Saudi company, which is basically, I think, a done deal, though they haven't finalized yet, which is horrifying. There's just so much, and we can't cover all of it. But I do want to highlight some of the upside stuff too. Game Informer came back this year. Gunzilla Games purchased the brand and let them relaunch under their own steam. Tons of our friends who had jobs and lost jobs have their jobs back. Friends of ours who recently got hired, like shout out to Eric Van Allen, a recent guest who got hired as a video editor over there as well. So excited. But even that, Gunzilla Games, I don't remember if it was they worked with cryptocurrency or something else. They had done some kind of thing, that was like, okay, well, that's a branch of gaming that they're investing in. People wanted to like poo-poo it. And it's like, Restart is run by Walmart, although they run, they're associated with Walmart. I think they're a company owned by Walmart, but Restart is their own thing. They're run on their own independently. They're not micromanaged by Walmart, but people want to poo-poo on it because of these things. And again, this is where the complicated feelings come through. But for me, for my friends, I'm happy they have jobs. It's so hard to find jobs within games reporting, let alone the games industry at the whole. And not all of us have friends in the industry, but like for me, truly, my heart is so happy that these people who I love and adore got their jobs back, got new jobs, all of that stuff. These things showcase the complexity of trying to engage in this industry and wanting to celebrate the wins while also not getting buried by the losses.
That being said, Mod Retro releasing a model using the metal from the drones that its parent company, Anduril Industries, produces is a pretty clear line of things.
Yes, that console is bathed in blood, basically. It is, without a doubt, the worst thing to come out this year. If you are supporting, promoting, or buying a console made with drone parts that were used to kill people, bad. Full stop. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
It's a little harder to obfuscate the supply lines on those. And yes, there is a whole hierarchy thing going on here that we do not claim to be experts in. Sometimes there is a very clear line. I think that one does rank as kind of one of the worst things because there's some concepts there that I really like. And then the rest of it is horrifying and nail on the head, bathed in blood.
Yeah. That being said, there's a ton of stuff that we've missed. There was the SAG-AFTRA fight for pushback against AI in games. There was a ton of AI use in games that complicated the landscape, from Arc Raiders uncomplicatedly kind of abhorrently using AI voices in their game instead of hiring voice actors, to the more complicated money stuff that we'll talk about in our top 10. There's a game in my top 10 that has come forth now saying they used AI, and how they used it. It can't be a black and white issue anymore. It's going to get muddy, and I think we need to talk about it. I am against generative AI use. I think it's abhorrent, but also I work a day job that requires generative AI use on some level. So like, we all have complicated feelings about it. It's very easy to be against it in one way, but we cannot ignore how it's been so roped into the everyday life of anybody, not just us and those with jobs that require it. That's the broad scope. Of course, when we do these recaps, if there's stuff that you want us to hit on over the course of the year, want us to discuss, we always encourage you to write in, post on the Discord, We want to make this a conversation. I don't always remember to ask for questions, but if you direct us with questions or discussions you want us to have, we are happy to cover it and happy to fit it into our schedule because we love involving you guys, the listener.
Yeah, and a lot of these questions are very easily spun into wider episode topics. So certainly some of the more evergreen ones or ones that are in the last year or so can be very much a full topic. So just because we didn't farm for questions for this doesn't mean we don't want to hear from y'all.
Moving on to us, because, who doesn't want to talk about themselves for a little bit? We've had a pretty great year. Beyond everything else, I had a viral YouTube short last month or this month.
Recently.
Very recently. There's a John Hamm meme going around. It's a song, not from the original scene, but he's in this show called Your Friends and Neighbors. There's a club scene of him just dancing and vibing out. And people have been taking that with this club song from a couple of years back and like using it to enhance like that feeling when that feeling hits. And I did one about when that indie game hits and posted it in several places, but on YouTube, it got over 100,000 views and like 5K likes and stupid. It's dumb. We got like 30 or 40 new subscribers on YouTube. Welcome. If you're here listening,
Hi there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I posted it as a gag. I posted it as a bit. I saw a friend of the show, Jacob McCourt, do one. And I was like, I can do that. Did it in one take. People not only saying that I look like John Hamm, which, God, thank you. I don't agree, but I'll take it. But also, what I wanted to happen is the comments is littered with people saying what indie game gives them that feeling. It was so fun to see that from major AAA titles, which is outside of what I said, to just tons of really cool indie games. And like, I love that. I think that was such a fun, stupid thing. And maybe I can figure out other ways to be fun and stupid in 2026.
It gets more people talking about those games. And Matt, whatever feelings on your look or anything that you may have, the nice thing is, having seen a lot of that meme format, you are somebody that looks enough like John Hamm that if you're looking real quick, the transition is so nice.
Thank
You've
you.
got the motion right, and then everything else, it is a goddamn beautiful transition. So I think it makes for a nice video.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's silly, and I really loved it. But we did a ton of other stuff, so our audience grew, of course. Welcome to all our new patrons, all our new listeners. We love to have you. But also, we took on some new stuff. I, for one, wanted to do more writing this year. And I did just that. I wrote 11 reviews this year, one a month, which to those who write much more frequently for larger outlets may not seem like a lot. To me, who before that wrote like 3 articles in a year, and then before that hadn't written in like a decade, pretty impressive. Got to review games, got to hit review embargoes for games like Citizen Sleeper back in January, which was really fun.
Yeah.
I found my voice as a writer. The most recent article I did on Demon School, shout out to Jacob from the Pre-Order Bonus podcast, he edited it, and I had like a handful of grammatical edits, but that was it. No content edits, no major mistakes or errors, and it's fun, and I'm definitely going to do it in the new year. My plan is to still do one a month again, and then do my top 10 in December. I know Demon School came out in December. My mistake was getting code a week before Thanksgiving and thinking I could actually do it. But shout out to the folks at Stride and many other PR folks, 47. We've worked with so many great PR companies this year. But I think also, if I may speak for both of us for just a moment, one of the biggest highlights this year, Geoff and I got to review a game, one of Geoff's favorite games of all time, but also from a company that Geoff and I both respect. Geoff and I were able to review and do an episode on Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice Chronicles through Square Enix. First of all, shout out to Chad, to Sarah as well, because we got some access to Dragon Quest stuff as well. But both of you do incredible PR work. Thank you for connecting with us, getting us those codes. I try not to let the AAA stuff go to my head. We are an indie podcast at heart, but I'd been getting stuff through 47 for a little while, and it's been fun to do that. But there's something I think, Geoff, that feels markedly more impactful about Square Enix because of what that company means to us. As much as I love Capcom and Sega, Square Enix is something I think that's ingrained in our DNA and the DNA of the show in a way that other companies are not. And so that just felt like a really big milestone for us.
Absolutely. I'm with you, where we are indie first, and that is not to the exclusion of other things. It is to the boosting of indie. But yeah, sometimes something just feels really nice. Ivalice Chronicles is on my top 10 and is a game that is a very good remake of a favorite game of mine and all of that. And so we try to have a nice, through line as journalistic voices here, but also we are gamers at heart. I got to play Final Fantasy Tactics early, and it felt really cool.
And yes, we are kids at heart, and getting early access to games is, of course, fun, and getting access to these games and being able to play them and cover them for the show or for writing or whatever else has been incredible. But like when you are a podcast that's independent and you're not necessarily making a ton of money from the show or not living the high life or whatever it is, have day job, whatever, like
Yeah.
this is a passion project. But those markers, getting certain games for free, getting to interact with certain companies, interview devs. We had so many incredible dev interviews this year, and we're
Mhm.
set up for more. One of our first episodes of next year is going to be with incredible dev that Geoff and I really adore. So like that kind of stuff never stops astonishing me. But seeing that growth, we both went to East this year. You went to West this year.
Mhm.
And the way we've been able to interact with our communities, other podcasters, other creators, writers, reporters, and feel that camaraderie in a way that we felt before, but it just continues to grow. You know, we launched a Discord server this year where just a bunch of independent artists can connect and independent writers and podcasters can connect to collaborate, to check each other's work, to help each other figure out what PR company is representing what game so we can request code to cover the game. Just that kind of nitty gritty groundswell stuff that larger companies don't have to hunt for as much because they have the access, they have the direct connection. My favorite thing to say, a rising tide raises all boats, right? Raises all ships. And
Mhm.
I love being a part of that. And I feel like this year, the growth of Just Fun and Games also is reflected in the growth of the other podcasts that we consider our peers.
Yeah. It's a nice little marina we have over there on the Discord server.
And there's a ton of other stuff that we got to do this year. Great interviews, great topics, incredible guests that we've wanted to have on the show for a while, new guests, returning guests, more retrospectives. We covered several consoles this year that I had zero experience with, and I got to be an audience member along with the rest of you, which was fun.
Thank you all for voting for the weird things that I put on these polls. We don't
know.
tell you who puts which consoles up there, but thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I did tell Geoff in the current poll running as we speak that if the weird one wins again, I am throwing the podcast out a window. But that's been really fun to cover what you guys want, and we've had incredible guests for all of those. And we have some cool stuff planned for 2026. Geoff and I would like to launch a new podcast series. As you've noticed, the last couple of months, we haven't had our usual check-in podcast. A lot of that has to do with the holidays, and the last couple of months of the year, kind of really tough to get that extra stuff out.
Yeah.
I've been writing, and I'm hoping that some of that stuff can supplement. But Geoff and I want to find not only a way to consistently do the wrap up every month, what we've been playing podcasts, but maybe something new, something that you can follow along with. Geoff and I love a lot of book club podcasts. And while that's something that I don't think Geoff or I has the brain space to tackle on our own, we've come up with something that might work for both of us to maybe cover something monthly and bring you into like a little small form game club for the folks who are on the Patreon, give them a little something special. And so we're brainstorming that, but I want to keep writing in 2026. I want to do another review a month. We'll see how that goes. There are definitely games coming in 2026 that I would love to cover. I do plan to keep it mostly to indie games, I think. I'm not opposed to covering AAA games, but I do believe that me being one of the 5 people who covered Demon School is more valuable, and I'm guessing, I don't know how many people actually covered it, than the one of 30 people who covered Evil East Chronicles, right? We're not opposed to doing that kind of work, and we've done it before, but I think when it comes to my writing specifically, I'd rather target the smaller stuff. Shout out to Lucas White, who also wrote about Rusty Rabbit this year, but like
Mhm.
that was one of my favorite games this year. It didn't even make my top 10 because there were too many games this year. Or Dunkadillo. Nobody covered that game. But Thomas K. Young is incredible, does incredible short form games. And I'm so glad I covered that one and want to go back and play his other series. That kind of stuff has been really fulfilling this past year. And so I'm hoping to do more stuff like that in 2026.
Yeah, I'm going to start talking about doing writing once I actually do some writing. I've got the graveyard of drafts, and maybe I'll finally publish some things. But until then, it is, I think, more important to be highlighting the coverage on games that don't have nearly as much coverage, getting to have devs on for interviews for a game that who knows how many reviews it's going to have, who knows where all of those things are going to go, feels more impactful. We want these games to be found. And that's a big part of it. All of the PR, all of the marketing, all of the everything else is putting it in our purview one way or another. And short of, tracking each and every person down that listens to this podcast and going, all right, here's what I think you should play. And here's what you should play. That's a lovely idea. Wouldn't that be great? It's not. So the way that we can is making it easier to find the cool little things that we think everyone should know about.
Yeah, and I think that's something Geoff just reminded me of. One of the ways that I also felt the growth of this podcast is not only our incredible following on socials that have grown since we had targeted specific social platforms and best ways to interact with them. But I have personally recommended several purchases of games this past year. And like, it's not about selling games to the individual, but also when people take my recommendations that seriously, people that I've never met in person that I only know online saw me post about a game and bought it sight unseen just based on my review or my little blurb on my thread of completed games. That feels good. It feels good to share that stuff. I love personalized recommendations like that. And so that's been really fun this year too. And there are a lot of games that Geoff and I have championed online that people have been like, oh, I should go check that out, or in the Discord server,
Oh,
which
yeah.
has been really great as well.
It's a nice thing because it is, yes, technically advertising or marketing or anything like that. But it is also, for us, something that I come to a lot is if you have the same outcome, it depends on what direction you're coming at it from. And for us, it is from the mindset of getting to personally recommend games to people. And it does feel nice to be able to recommend to a few more people this year.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the ride. We've got some cool stuff cooked up for 2026, and you can look forward to that. Before we move into our favorite game that we beat this year that didn't come out this year, I have to say that I did instill a rule for myself. So typically our top 10s can be whatever, games that came out this year, games that didn't come out this year. Thankfully, it's a blessing, a blessing and a curse that Geoff and I have had plenty of games to play that have come out this year. So hitting that top 10 of just new games isn't that hard. But I did instill that any games that were remasters or remakes that came out this year were exempt from my list personally, because I couldn't fit all the other games that came out this year if I didn't do that. And I had to create some kind of rule for myself. So that said, there are some games that should be on this list that are going to be on a different list. Maybe I'll do a second article. We'll see. But I want to spitfire run through my honorable mentions because I beat, as of recording, and there's still like a week left in 2025, so I could beat a few more. But I've beaten 59 games this year, up from 48 games last year, which is ludicrous. A lot of them were a couple hours long, so that helps.
Hey, beating a game.
But I want to run through my list really quick because I don't know. It feels overwhelmingly incredible that I managed this year. Some new games, some old games, but just a ton of stuff. So honorable mentions are Star Wars Outlaws, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Contra Operation Galuga, Crypt Custodian, Sonic CD, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on the Nintendo Switch, Kaze and the Wild Mask, Pepper Grinder, Donut County, Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit, TMNT, Turtles in Time, the arcade version, Banjo-Kazooie, Primal Rage, Super Monkey Ball, Pizza Tower, Blade Chimera, Doom Eternal, Monster Hunter Wilds, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Samus Returns, Strider 2, Super Metroid, Eternal Strands, Date Everything, Castle Crashers Remastered, Rusty Rabbit, Rugrats Adventure in Gameland, Super Mario Bros. 3, Mega Man 2, Despalote, Brutal Legend, Mouthwashing, yes, I played it again this year, Shantae Advance Rescue Revolution, Dark Queen of Marthome, Henry Halfhead Avowed, Dunkadillo Spilled, Many Nights of Whisper, Need for Speed Heat, Final Fantasy Tactics, Evilise Chronicles, Off, Sword of the Sea, Gex, and Gex Enter the Gecko.
So I think for next year, my resolution is to actually keep a list like this because I want to be able to rattle those off. I'm still continually having like, oh yeah, I played that this year. Crap. So yeah, my honorable mentions are nowhere near as long. That is an impressive list.
Thank you.
I mean, Off is definitely on mine as well, as is Motion Wreck and Fresh Tracks and Rift of the Necrodancer, Heartworm, which that would be on my list, but I didn't play enough of it this year in order to get anywhere. Same goes for Hyper B. I have rhythm games that aren't quite on my list because those are ones where I'm like, no, I've got to be thorough about these babies. And so those are ones that get on there. Peak was absolutely fantastic. Squeakcross, Home Squeak Home, Spirit Swap. I told Sarah we were putting up our game of, not this year of the year. And Sarah just kind of, I guess that's Baldur's Gate 3. We played a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 this year. Looking at my PlayStation summation, the first third of the year was almost entirely Baldur's Gate 3 because Sarah and I played through it together, as well as other stuff. So that's another little thing there. And there's so many others, and I'll try to shout them out on social media and elsewhere as I think of them.
Amazing. To that end, and I listed them in my blurb, but I will highlight them here. My top two, because it's hard to separate them, games of 2025 that technically didn't originally come out in 2025 are Off and Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, Final Fantasy Tactics was basically a remake, so technically it did come out this year. But again, there were 10 other games that didn't release previously and get re-released that I wanted to feature, so I knocked these off. But without a doubt, Off, I've not thought about a game more than I thought about a game like Off since finishing it. There's something about it in its DNA. I see why it inspired Undertale, which is another game that I think about at least once a day. After playing it on Steam and listening to the soundtrack on endless loop for a month, I gave in and I pre-ordered the Switch copy that comes out early next year, and I will damn well replay it on the Switch 2 once I get that physical copy. There's just something in the DNA of this game that, I mean, I love a meta narrative, no secret to anybody. And there's something so specific about Off that just makes it so weird and so perfect. It is easily my favorite game I played this year that didn't come out this year, even though technically the remaster came out this year. If you haven't played Off, I cannot recommend it enough. If I played this the year it came out, it would be on my top 10, probably my number one game of that year. That said, there are a ton of games in my top 10 that if it came out any other year, they'd be my number one. But we'll get to that when we get to our top 10s.
Yeah, there's some bangers this year. So I've got two for my non-2025 because they're both small games and they both had a similar level of impact for me. Level Devil and 20 Small Mazes. Now, Level Devil had its official Steam release this year, but it's been out in various forms over in the past year or so. It is absolutely playing as Wile E. Coyote in an Atari 2600 platformer. Simple graphics, simple sound, devious difficulty on things because it is just trying to get to an exit, and each world is a series of 4 or 5 stages built around a concept of just a big old middle finger to you. The first world, run across to the other door. Right when you hit a trigger point, in time with sort of your pace, a pit opens up and you fall in. But that pit is always going to be there. So it is very much about learning the stage, and you are able to just get through it every time, but there is just enough of a feeling of oh, damn, I forgot about that part. Ah, crap. And they're all just small stages, except for towards the end. And there's been some updates that are going on, and there's some other fun little secrets to find in it. It was released on Steam in the first half of this year, and it's a game that I will go back to probably about once a month and just kind of do a 20-minute run through a series of stages or go, what's updated? Or I just kind of need to shake something off here. It's a lot of fun. 20 Small Mazes is a game that I played a couple of days ago. In our PAX Unplugged wrap-up, I talked a bit about the puzzle hunt that Sarah and I did. While doing that, this game was recommended to me several times by people. 20 Small Mazes is exactly what it sounds like. It is a series of 20, basically, diner mazes. Move the dot to the exit. Except each one of them has something weird about them. And you need to figure out what it is. And it's not a thing of the maze comes up and you pick it. You have sort of a desktop workspace. You click and move whatever maze to the forefront. If you're not quite getting a maze, you can pick up another maze, and they kind of get on top of each other, and there is design to that. Before we started recording, Matt, we were talking about how sometimes a hub world can be really well designed if you choose to go that way. This is basically 20 mazes with the hub world being pick the maze, but that's also part of how you find it, kind of in how we were describing the puzzle hunt as discovering what the puzzle is a piece of it. I was able to play it to completion over the course of a train ride, but to our earlier discussion about Switch 2 and how things should play a little more, this was a game that played while we played.
Amazing. Before we finally get into our top 10s, I did want to also talk about briefly our most anticipated games for next year. I didn't think anything would top Wolverine, favorite comic book character made by one of my favorite studios. Then at the Game Awards, only a few weeks ago, there was an announcement. We finally have a release year. It'll probably be the end of next year for the long-awaited Control sequel, Control Resident. When I tell you I've never become more obsessed with a game so fast than when I finally played Control, I've now played it through to completion at least 4 times, and I will definitely do it a 5th time before the new game comes out. I've been obsessed with the Remedyverse. We've talked about it here quite a bit. Alan Wake was my game of the year last year. Alan Wake 2, or no, 2 years ago, I think that was. Last year was Dragon Age. I can remember things, but I'm so hooked in. It looks like it's going to be more melee focused. Now we're playing as Jesse's brother, Dylan. He wakes up after being made comatose by the hiss in the first game. The first game was like X-Files on acid, and this looks like it's bound to be more of that. I love how weird their worlds get. I love their set pieces. They've had some incredible stuff, like the Herald of Darkness in Alan Wake 2. I won't say more than that. Control is in my top 10 games of all time. It skyrocketed there after playing it the first time. And so getting a direct sequel to that game that I hope lives up to it, like I can't possibly be more excited for anything else. Wolverine is a distant second, but Control Resonant is the game I am looking forward to next year.
I mean, I'm excited for what Fabraz is working on. Both Demon Tides and Bubsy 4D are coming out next year, and I love that saying that I'm excited about Bubsy 4D feels like a legitimate thing. I am excited for, I don't think Secret of Weepstone has a concrete release date yet, but damn it, I'm fingers crossed for next year on that one. I mean, I'm also excited for Cat Secretary, which is a game that we will be having the devs on at some point early next year to talk about their development process. We always love a good 3D collectathon. Mina the Hollower at whatever point. When we finally get our hands fully on it, you'll know. You will know. I don't know if I have any one game that I'm super excited, like that this is the one game, but 2026 looks like it's going to be another difficult year of choosing what to play next.
For sure. Yeah. With Mina getting pushed into 2026, we're assuming they haven't officially announced it. Whenever that comes out, Geoff and I are probably the two biggest fans of that studio, although there may be others.
Yes.
I try not to show for AAA, but it's hard to. I feel like Remedy has an indie spirit, though, as a AAA developer a little bit.
It gets murky sometimes.
Yes, we are all human, but yes, so those are the games we're looking forward most to next year, and you can bet your ass we're going to cover them in some way, shape, or form. But now, our top 10 games of 2025. My number 10 game for 2025 is Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo.
Mine is higher up on the list, and that is on there.
All right, so we will hold off on our discussion of Pipistrello till we get to it on Geoff's list. So, Geoff, what is your number 10 game of the year?
My number 10 is Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice Chronicles. I couldn't justify to myself putting it any higher for similar reasons why you didn't put remakes and re-releases on your top 10 list at all. But it is a game that, as we noted before, is a huge part of my history, is a game I absolutely adore. You know, there are those games where you just kind of go, okay, yeah, maybe it's a cash grab, maybe it's whatever else. I had so much delight the entire time playing Ivalice Chronicles. I'm not going to dwell too much on it because we did an entire episode about it, but throughout the experience, there were so many design choices that were removals of needless friction while still maintaining a good amount of challenge. There was joy in discovery that previously, back in 1997, 1998, I had to scour GameFAQs to get anywhere, not find it within the game itself. I also consider it a little bit more of a new experience because of the new dialogue. It is of Final Fantasy Tactics for the PS1, but it is, I think, its own entity. So that's why I feel good putting it on the list. I am definitely going to be playing it a few more times in the coming year, if I have time for it. And that's why it is my number 10.
Yeah, I mean, again, we did a whole episode on this with the incredible Eric Van Allen. I got to experience for the first time one of Geoff's favorite games, and then Geoff got to be my strategy guide Sherpa, a thing that usually only Sarah gets. And that was like, anytime I had a question, I was like, I'll just post it in our group chat. Oh, Geoff knows the answer. Of course, Geoff does. It was great. And I got locked in on a tactics game in a way that I haven't before. And I'm lucky enough to have played two incredible tactics games this year. One of them is on my list, and we'll talk about it when we get to it. But like, I have found an obsession for the tactics genre that I think I was teetering around. But after playing tactics, it's so tight. It's such a good experience. I was obsessed with the story to the point where, and I've told Geoff this before, I think it's one of my top Final Fantasy experiences, full stop.
Yep.
I got so connected to this game. I played it obsessively for weeks, nonstop, not playing any other game, and I rarely do that. Definitely an incredible game that I'm glad on your top 10 that, like I said, would be on mine if there weren't a ton of other brand new games that came out this year, and is still easily one of my favorite RPG experiences ever. But now moving on to my number 9. My number 9 is Wanderstop. Wanderstop, for those who didn't get to play it, was a cozy sim where you play as a character who is burned out from being the greatest champion in the world, find themselves in this in-between space at a tea shop with this lovable character named Boro. It's basically a tea-making simulator with some big thoughts on burnout and overwhelm. It's one of the most impactful narratives I think I've experienced in a long while. It is definitely targeted at creators of some kind, creative people who feel like they've burned themselves out. It's a David Reedon game. David Reedon's done a ton of incredible work. This is his first game with the new studio he's a part of called Ivy Road. Shout out to Ivy Road for providing me with a review code. I wrote a review. You can go read it if you want to get deep into my thoughts, but it's got music by C418, who's famously known for doing the Minecraft soundtrack. Like, this is like the Avengers team up of indie creators making an incredible game about heart, burnout, and finding yourself. Alta is the main character who I can pull the name of before. Embodying Alta and understanding why she's burned out, understanding why she can't reckon with it, and how she heals is healing to anyone who's experienced that kind of burnout. If you've been looking for a game with a unique story, a cozy game vibe that doesn't rush you, the thing that always bounces me off of like life sims and cozy games is that there are timers. Get this order in by this time, do this thing by this day, get this thing by this season. None of that. You can take your time, fulfill the tea orders or coffee later in the game as you see fit. There's no rush. You don't have to be a completionist. There are certain benchmarks that you have to hit with characters, but other than that, you can take your time and really explore the narrative of this game. And I can't shout it out enough. I think it's an incredible game. Definitely worth your time. And if you're a fan of games like the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide, which also, of course, are by Davey Reedon, definitely this is worth your time as well. It's not on that same level of like that punch in the face, punch in the gut moment of like, the big twist, as it were, whatever that is in those games, they have them. This is more of an experience over time. It's damage over time, as it were, to healing your mental health. And so I think it's definitely worth your time and definitely something you should play, and I can't recommend enough.
Yeah, it's been very interesting hearing a lot of people have a lot of takes on this game. This is something unique, not only to Wanderstop, but to it is a unique thing of kind of how people feel about the game says a lot about how they're coming at it.
Yes.
I think with the other Davey Reedon games, those sort of punches, those strange moments are things that you kind of careen into. You are running towards them, and they are shorter experiences for that, whereas Wanderstop is meant to be a little longer and a little slower, and the emotional punch is meant to be looking back, not what you ran into, but what you've already passed. That can be such a powerful narrative moment regardless of medium, but it is so potent when it's games because you are the one who did it.
Yes, absolutely.
My number 9 is Quartet.
That's not on my list. I didn't get to play Quartet. We had a great interview with Tyler about the game. I did play the opening hours of it, but I backed it, and I backed for Switch code, and I want to play it on my Switch. So I'm holding out for that. So it'll probably be my favorite game from 2025 that I beat in 2026. And so you can look forward to more on that at the end of next year.
Hear, hear. Well, this is why we kind of split this up a little bit. We can cover a lot more ground that way. And Quartet is a fantastic, classic turn-based RPG. One of the things for me was how it made me reconsider my relationship with other classic RPGs, things of the time that Quartet is evoking. There are no random battles in it. And this encouraged a sense of exploration. This encouraged a sense of character. And it felt like such a quick, breezy thing if I'm just going from battle to battle. But random battles in older RPGs were much more of a, this is how it felt big and epic and wide and crazy. But without that, you have to explore in a different way. And you're sort of encouraged to. It felt good finding what I could find, the secrets that I could, and interacting with the characters that I could find and the people in my party because of it. I enjoy the battle system. I love a lot of throwback titles that are having a lot of fun of a few small, interesting pieces sort of turning together as wheels and gears to make the battle system. Kind of the push and pull. Feels strategic, feels fun. I enjoyed it from the first time I demoed it years ago. And I do adore all of the characters. There's a lot of fun writing and banger after banger as far as tunes go.
Yeah, I mean, I love something classic. I fell in love with them since I played Shadows of Adam. And when we first met Tyler all those years ago, and I'm so glad that we were able to reconnect on this other end as this game was coming out and that it's finally out now. I'm happy to wait for however long it takes for the Switch version to come out because I know it'll be worth it. I know a lot of folks also lauding Quartet, and it had a lot more exposure than Shadows of Adam originally did. I hope a lot of folks go back and play Shadows of Adam because it has that same humor, that same bite-sized nature, and is definitely worth your time if you enjoyed this game as well. Moving on to number 8, my number 8 game, a game that I thought would be my number 1, but shows what I know, is Citizen Sleeper 2, Starward Vector. This was my first written review of the year. We got review code at the beginning of January, and I was able to finish it by release and prep a review for the first time to come out at embargo with a bunch of other reviewers, which was a fun feeling. Seeing mine up there in the conversation with other people's reviews, really a blast. And this is interesting because I thought I didn't like this game when I first played it. The thing is, City Sleeper 1 had stakes, but you couldn't really fail. Like, you could fail events, you could fail moments, but all in all, the game did guide you into feeling like you were losing, but really couldn't. Citizen Sleeper 2 gets you a lot closer. Your dice can break. You can lose party members, not gain certain party members depending on the narrative choices you make. There is a much harsher hitting form of failure. And there is a point in the game where you basically hit rock bottom, all your dice are broken, you can't do anything. You're trying to scrounge together whatever money and food you can to fix yourself and your allies as you jump from planet to planet. But what I didn't realize was, until after talking to other people who played the game after embargo, they also had those moments. In fact, I don't know anyone who played that game and didn't hit rock bottom at some point.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so that was mechanically by design, which kind of blew my mind. I personally didn't love it as much as the first game. I think there's nothing like Citizen Sleeper 1. And so there was no way that Citizen Sleeper 2 could compare because Citizen Sleeper 1 already existed. But I think what Citizen Sleeper 2 adds to the world, to the mechanics, to the storytelling is worth lauding, and it is incredible. I have to replay the first game to see if it still holds up, because narratively, you can't beat Lemon Mina. You just can't. They were the best. There was a lot of great stuff. I do like how characters come back in the sequel, and even though you're not the same sleeper, we, the player, know those characters, and that they come back in the sequel is really great. I won't spoil who, but like, I really love this game. I think if you like tabletop games, if you like rolling dice, and if you like incredibly written narratives, yes, this game and the first game are basically like reading a book. But as someone who struggles to read books because my attention can't be held, this is the kind of dense narrative storytelling that I can get through because there are tiny mechanical little treats that I get every so often to get me through it. It really is one of the more brilliantly written games ever. And while I am a little sad that Gareth Damian Martin has already said that they are not making another game, they have said that they are making a tabletop RPG version of it, which is very exciting. I understand wanting to put something down. And I don't think that they said never, but they said they want to make something else, which is totally legit. Again, making a direct sequel to a game is not easy, and I'm glad that we got it. And I really love this game a lot. But it's not at my number one because there were friction points that, while are part of the game, kind of did rub me the wrong way, although holistically I understand them. But also, again, it's just, it doesn't hit the way that first game did. And I don't know that that's Citizen Sleeper 2's fault. I think that's my fault. That's why it's here at number 8. Still, it's number 8 when like 30 incredible games came out this year. So still nothing to sneeze at. And so, yeah, Citizen Sleeper 2 is my number 8.
Yeah, it does a very good job of evolving on what Citizen Sleeper 1 does. It tells a different story in a different sense of scale, but it does have that sense of dread and rock bottom within it that is truly potent. And I would compare it kind of to the way that, like, Portal 2 is a great game, but Portal is Portal, and neither is bad. But I honestly am happy that at the moment we're having the 2 games because they're enjoyable, they're good, I love them.
Hell yeah.
My number 8 is Gigasword.
I didn't finish it this year as of when we're recording. I do plan to go back to it. I stopped about like halfway through, but I'm excited that it's on your list.
We have our interview with Jack. I think that's going to be the next episode after this one, in fact. So you'll get to hear more about it there. But all things considered, this is, I've been calling it a Zeldavania. It does have a Metroidvania feel to it, but calling it a Metroidvania is a little disingenuous. I think this has much more of a slower, deliberate pace to it. And once you get to that idea and you're solving puzzles in a more Zelda-like fashion in a side-scrolling way, and that's why I kept Vania, not Metroid, you have like kind of a classic Castlevania methodical pace to it. Simon Belmont is not fast, zippy Alucard, and neither is your character in Gigasword, but there is a good sense of satisfaction. There is a cool sense of progression, but also never feeling like I can overpower anything and everything. There are moments where I am powerful, but it can just as easily be taken from me. The discovery and exploration is a lot of fun, and it does have its points where it can be a little obtuse. It does have some points that are a little tricky to kind of pull some pieces together, but that is being addressed in future updates. All in all, it is a game that, while playing it, I basically played it every single day because I just wanted to find a little more. I wanted to explore a little more. I haven't had that kind of fun unlocking in a Metroidvania game feeling in a while. I've had finding new areas, but there was something about the distinct satisfaction of getting this key to this door, finding this secret wall that was, I think, there again, because of the deliberate pace that is put into the gameplay, hit all the harder.
Yeah, this is a game that, as I've said many times, when I sat down and played it East, I disappeared. Like, I played it for a while.
Hmm.
It's just one of those games that mechanically hits in a way and musically hits. And you'll hear more of this in our interview with Jack. It's playing to the hits of stuff that I love, like the Metroid games and Zelda games, but also Shovel Knight and other indies that we love that Jack cites as direct inspiration are games that are favorites of mine and Geoff. So this was basically genetically engineered in a lab for the two of us to love.
Oh, yeah.
But there was just not a way I was going to finish it this year, along with a bunch of other stuff and some detours I took. I definitely plan to go back to it, but it is a phenomenal game. And it really proves what I want more than anything is a tight mechanical experience. My top 3 games are all narratively up there because of the narratives as well as mechanics. But there's something about how crunchy mechanics in the right way can just carry you through things in the same way that I love the Devil May Cry series. Like, just that feel good dopamine of press button, get reward, press button, get reward. There are movements and abilities and other things that I discovered. You get a talent tree and you can choose things out of order that make a boss fight for me much easier, made a boss fight for Geoff a little harder, like, because I just made that choice with a touching story to boot that is wrapped up in this incredibly dense mechanical package. So yeah, Gigasword is definitely an awesome game, and I look forward to it being on my list of games I beat in 2026 from 2025.
It's got big swords and big birds. Like, it's a good time.
I mean, what else can you ask for? All right, moving on to number 7, my number 7 game, and one of the handful of AAA titles that are on my list is South of Midnight. Released by Compulsion Games, they did We Happy Few, which I have yet to play, but is now on my list. This is a Southern Gothic narrative that takes place in the Deep South. You play as Hazel, a young woman whose mom gets swept away by a storm, and then you interact with all of these fantastical creatures steeped in Southern lore, specifically rituals within communities of color. Has an incredible voice cast, an incredible soundtrack that also is steeped in the American Deep South. I don't even know in a couple of sentences how I can really summarize this game. It plays like a hack and slash kind of Devil May Cry style action game, but they knew how strong their narrative was that they actually have a feature in the game where you could turn combat off. You get to battles, they end, and then you move on to the next narrative beat. You can basically play it like a visual novel almost, where you move through the world and stuff just happens. I think the combat is great. It's a little oversimplified and a little repetitive, and so people who maybe aren't keen to that kind of action combat might get bored. But I thought it was just right. I really enjoyed it. I thought the difficulty curve was just right. But again, you can make it easy or even remove combat altogether. But it is one of the best stories I think I've encountered in a video game ever. And a story I was unfamiliar with customs and creatures and characters I was unfamiliar with. And I was so excited to learn. It had this fairy tale storytelling vibe to it. The music from it is so incredible. The mix of like Southern rock and gospel and New Orleans style jazz, all sorts of really incredible stuff. I feel like this game was overlooked. It came out early this year, back in April. I think that because it was stuck on the Xbox and will continue to be stuck on the Xbox and PC until sometime next year, but it is finally coming to PlayStation next year. It's one of the coolest third-person action games I've ever played on the narrative and music alone, and the style, the graphics. There's an area where you get into this like afterlife style version of New Orleans with neon lights and bright colors. And like, as someone who loves New Orleans and have been there a couple of times, it immediately took me back there. I think this is a game that has such a strong sense of place. It's unlike anything that's come before or since. And I think we need more of that. And I want to give South of Midnight its flowers because it just is doing something I didn't think narratives could do. It surprised me in a way that, and this will be the theme in like my top 5 as we get through them, but like Being surprised by narratives is my favorite thing. Not seeing things coming, learning about something new that I don't understand, really awesome. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely go play it. If you don't have an Xbox or a PC, it's coming to Switch 2 eventually and PS5. So pick it up there, but it's totally, totally worth your time.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to be playing it once it comes to PS5. I think you're right. Being stuck in the Microsoft ecosystem and when it came out is kind of I feel like it's not showing up as much in conversations right now, but I haven't looked at every top 10 list that's going on, so hopefully it gets a little more notice when it gets released out into the wilds.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I just want to remark on quick. There was a new Double Fine game that came out this year that Geoff and I haven't talked about. It's because it's stuck on the Microsoft ecosystem and on PC, and my PC can't run it for whatever reason. I think it's just whatever it requires. So until it comes to another platform, Keeper, I was excited for. Anything new from Double Fine, I'm excited for.
Right.
And it's just going basically unnoticed because of this exclusivity that we have to have another conversation about exclusivity in 2026 because I think it's getting archaic, but it bums me out that I still haven't played this Double Fine game. And it's the same reason, right? That you haven't played South of Midnight. It's stuck on an ecosystem that you can't play.
Yeah, and that is what it is, and that's why these are personal lists.
Yes, correct.
Speaking of my personal list, my number 7 is Clover Pit. Clover Pit is one of those games that is just going to be it's this meets this meets this kind of thing. It's Balatro meets Inscription with slot machines, where you are in some kind of just cell, and you have to play a slot machine to make enough money to get to the next threshold of debt paid off. And if you don't within 3 rounds, the floor falls out from under you and you fall to your death. It is a dingy, horrid, squalid little cell that you're in that is all throwback, pixelated PS1-ish textures, which I absolutely adore. It has a certain amount of just strange existential horror and also a little bit of acknowledgement of other games in fun little oblique ways. There is actually a Balatro reference in there, as well as Monopoly and Catan references. And in the same way, like Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers or Balatro or any of these other sort of casino roguelikes, I guess. I kind of want to see the weird piecing together of all of these into the most hellish casino ever. Like, I don't want to, but I want to. But you are able to alter the reels on the slot machine. Not the reels itself, but you can make some things pop up a little more often or less often, make them be worth more or less, mess with multipliers. Whenever certain things happen, you can trigger other things. Rather than jokers, you have charms. You can affect how many you have and having good runs and building these things up while also trying to figure out how to get out of the cell you're in, which is definitely a piece of it. There are obvious ways and not so obvious ways, and there is a good deal of fun in it where I don't really do a lot of slot machines in my day-to-day life. I've been to Atlantic City a number of times. I'm not a big slot machine person. The mechanism of it is rad as hell. I love it. Pull the thing, stuff happens. It keeps it within I'm not paying actual money. I'm getting to take part in an arcade-like experience with a little bit of a mystery to solve. However, one run goes to the next, fantastic. And this one got overshadowed a little bit because it had a lot of anticipation, but came out around the same time as Silk Song. So we all felt that.
Yeah, this is one that I've seen a lot of friends post about. It looks like I would enjoy the hell out of it, but it, like games in its vein, like Ball Pit, I'm told that it's not Ball Cross Pit, it's just Ball Pit,
Yeah.
which I played a ton of this year and didn't get anywhere near finishing. That's why it's not on my list. These kinds of games have been fun to explore. There's a ton more coming next year. There's one of like those coin pushing games. Racoin, which
Very
I'm
excited about
for.
that. As somebody who had a real problem as a kid putting money into coin pusher games and things like that.
Yeah, same.
It's not about the winning the money, it's about winning. Or about kind of getting the flashy lights and sounds, and putting them into a package like this really scratches that itch. That was really all I needed. So I don't need to get the big payout in a real life slot machine and put real money into it. I just needed to buy this game once and just have a lot of fun with this hellish slot machine. There's a toilet you can interact with. You unlock things with it.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention, as we're talking about indies, because I did forget to mention this in our section about the things that we've gotten to do this year. Geoff and I were judges in the Indie Game Awards this year, and we're going to talk more about it when we get to my number 1. This was an incredible honor for both of us to be
Yes.
part
Oh
of
my
the
God.
jury. We can't thank the folks over at 61 Indie enough. We're excited that we're going to be included in the future years and get to be a part of that. Shout out to Mike, Kelsey, Kyle, and everyone else on that team, Harry, other people I'm forgetting to mention, Becca. They're just kicking ass over there. What they do isn't easy, and the IGAs are awesome. We got to play a lot of games on our list as a result of our connection to that and our exposure to games that we had not even heard of.
I'm super honored and humbled to have been a part of it this year. Looking forward to doing more of it next year. Thank you so much to everybody. And it feels really good to be working with a group of people that are, we talked before about kind of playing for the ideal world within a gaming industry and things like that. And they have made a lot of choices and a lot of stances that have gotten some interesting feedback that I feel are true to their principles. I still, as of all of that, am so proud of what's gone on and what will come in the future.
Same. Absolutely 100%. It's relevant to my game of the year, so we'll talk more about it when we get to it. But moving on to my number 6, the reason I brought this up now is because my number 6 got a second highlight after I first heard about it because of the Indie Game Awards. But my number 6 is Anne Roger. So I first heard about Anne Roger. I assume it's just on my list, Geoff?
Yes, I still haven't played it.
All good. It is going to be the best, worst hour of your life. So I look forward to you playing it.
Yep. That's why I keep putting it off.
So Anne Roger, I first heard about thanks to the folks over at Remap Radio who I've shouted out before, specifically Patrick Klepek and Jenna Garcia. They were talking about this game that I'd never heard of. I knew nothing about it. They said it was a narrative game in the vein of Florence, a game I still embarrassingly have not played, but I'm familiar with. It starts out feeling kind of like a horror game, but it's not, but you should play it. And that's all I knew. And it was a couple hours long. It kept getting recommended then in other places slowly. So I bought it sight unseen on Steam and played it, and it ruined me. And I will not spoil the plot here, as I have not in the past. It's why I didn't review it, because I don't feel like there's any way to review it without spoiling it. But my proudest badge of honor is that I sent it immediately to Ken Shepard, who then played it, got the reaction I had hoped, and there wrote an article about it on Kotaku. And the Ken Shepard to Kotaku pipeline, I can't be more proud than that, since Ken Shepard's the one who infected me with Before Your Eyes in the best way, which is also a heart-wrenching game that I really love. And Roger is a short indie game by Thier Studio, and you get a perspective on life and going through a struggle with something that I've never seen better conveyed in a video game in my entire life. I just think this game is so powerful that spoiling any of it, I can tell you about the gameplay. It's very point and click. And if you played Florence, it's like there's mini games. You play these mini games to get the hands-on experience of what it's like to move through this person's life. While it's not my number 1, it is easily one of the most emotional I've ever gotten playing a video game, probably only second to Before Your Eyes. It's definitely worth playing. It's here at number 6 in the middle of my list. It's one of those games that when you say, are games art, or what games should people experience to really see what the medium of video games can do, this is in that conversation, without a doubt. And it's this studio's first video game, too. It's a debut title.
And now that the holidays are winding down and I've visited most of my relatives, I can possibly play this and recover within the day.
Yeah, it is one of those games that if you are empathetic, if you are someone who feels deeply when experiencing media, this is a game that is worth your time, but is also going to hurt. And not in the mouthwashing, I hope this hurts.
Speaking of games that hurt but differently, my number 6 is White Knuckle. White Knuckle was my favorite game of PAX East. Putting this list together, I realized I haven't played it in a little while, and I'm mad at myself. I loved my time with it. And then looking at it, went, oh, it's had some seasonal updates. There's one right now called The Chimney. I can't wait. White Knuckle is a first-person roguelike climbing horror game. There is so much satisfaction in the choices that you have to make while climbing, that there are the falls that you have, that there is both the frustration of jumps and the feeling that I am the architect of my own downfall, literally. It is a fun horror game for people who aren't necessarily here for jump scares, but do like creepy vibes. It has a good atmosphere, and it has a good, satisfying gameplay loop of how far can you go. A lot of games that I've enjoyed this year have gone the roguelike route in one way or another, and I realize that this year that is the modern arcade experience. And that was something that took a while to get to. And I don't think this is its final form. I don't think that this year was the year they finally got it right, but this was the year that I noticed it. That sort of one more run mentality of a roguelike game. If you take it away from the dungeon crawling aspects of it, or origins of it rather, you get things like Balatro, you get Clover Pit, you get White Knuckle, and these are games that you would put the quarter in to start playing again without having to be about a certain number of credits, and it allows for a little bit of progress as well. I do love a good arcade experience in that way, and I like a good horror game. What can I say? This one's a lot of fun, and the sense of dread that it gives you as your hands turn from white to red is palpable.
Yeah, this is one of those games that I very readily recognized that it was not for me, but also very readily recognized that I could watch Geoff play the entire game. It's more exciting when someone who really enjoys and clicks with the game plays it and you watch them play it. It's why I watch certain streamers play certain games. White Knuckle is doing something really interesting. Our interview at PAX East was great about it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I recognize gameplay wise, it's not for me. I've given it a couple of tries. What it is so brilliant. And I'm so glad that it's on your list because it is unlike anything that's come before since. And while I've recently found a love for horror games, the things I love most about the horror genre is the interesting ways in which people interact with horror. It's why I will be shouting Iron Lung from the top of my lungs forever because of that 1 hour, 2 hour experience. I agree about White Knuckle as well. Just the dread I felt playing the demo back when we played it, like, was so palpable in the most perfect way.
It's so good. I'm so bad at it. I don't care.
Exactly. All right. Moving on to my number 5. Sometimes in a year of incredible games, you get a game you didn't expect at all, and it becomes one of your favorites. For me, that game was Wheel World. So Wheel World became my October review because I was originally going to do Mina, and then I was originally going to do Demon School, and they both moved. So instead, I did Wheel World. Shout out to Pop Agenda, who I forgot to mention earlier in the episode, also an incredible collaborator this year, and they sent out their usual email of like, here are our 5 games that we published with Annapurna that are real bangers. If you haven't played them, you should play them. And while I'd played a bunch of them, I hadn't played Wheel World. Shout out to Jared over at Play Along, had been touting how much he loved it. And so I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. Turned out it would become one of my favorite games and probably one of my favorite open world experiences ever. Now, the reason I'm surprised that it did is because it is an open world adventure racing game. That's right. You play as Kat, a cyclist who has found this bike of legend, possessed by a demon named Scully, and needs to get things flowing again to make this world whole or complete. And you go on this awesome giant adventure trying to find the legendary bike parts. And once you put together the legendary bike parts, you can reenact this event that will bring spirits where they need to go at the end of their life. This is by Messhoff, and it was published by Annapurna Interactive. This is probably my most fun I've ever had playing a racing game. And I like racing games. There's something about it being an open world bike adventure game that made it feel fresh, unique. Part of what I love about it is one of the most incredible indie rock soundtracks I've ever heard, ever, with a variety of artists on it. Easily one of my favorite video game soundtracks of the year, but also maybe of all time. Like, I listen to it regularly. It was just so fun. The races were really approachable. It never felt too hard or too easy. It had the right amount of difficulty for me, who is not, I'd say, a skilled racer. I really had a great time. It's always fun when a game that I'd heard about but didn't play and then finally play jumps through the top of my list and leaves an impression like this. I believe this is one of Messhoff's first games, if it's not their first game ever. I will be watching the studio now. I loved this game so much. Oh, so no, this isn't their first game. They are all best known for Nidhogg, and they also made Fly Wrench. But I loved this game. I had a great time with it. And if you are looking for a unique take on a small scale open world game that has a decent length of time and you're not bogged down in the finding the check marks of it all, I can't recommend Wheel World enough. There's stuff to explore and discover, but also if you just want to play a fun racing game where you race on a bike that's possessed by a demon, you can do that too. And I think that's beautiful.
I think so as well. I mean, this also reminds me that I did not mention Tanuki Pond Summer as one of my anticipated games of 2026 because, by God,
Yes.
I'm so excited for that small open world biking game as well.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
My number 5 is Absalom, a roguelike beat 'em up game. And kind of to my point before about the arcadiness of a good roguelike game, Absalom is kind of to me, a culmination of the old Capcom side scrollers, your golden axes of the world. There's a great deal of character in all of the designs, the things that are unlocked. It does that even better than Dragon's Crown, which is a Vanillaware game that I absolutely adore, letting each of the characters feel unique and have different loadouts from run to run, and it allows for two-person multiplayer. It shot up my list as a game where I finished up my Baldur's Gate 3 run with my usual weekly online group a while back, and we've been playing a bunch of other games, and life has gotten complicated. Some job stuff's been happening that's kind of reaching a stabilization point that we're going to start all playing together again. But there was a bunch of times where it was just two of us. And so Absalom was recommended and we started playing it, and it's kind of become the go-to where it's like, oh man, a lot of times when we all couldn't make it, it just sort of became a dead week. But now it's become, ooh, now we can do a few more runs of Absalom. Let's see how much further we can get. Let's see how much more we can try. The sense of secrets to discover that aren't too crazy, and some that are absolutely, once you know how to do them, you go, how the hell was I supposed to figure that out? That, again, calls to the old arcade style of you're going run to run. How am I supposed to find all of these things? You don't find all of them. You find them as you go. You've opened up this secret area. You're going to try stupid things because you're waiting for somebody. So you try the emotes while sitting somewhere, and that opens something. Oh my gosh, kind of feeling. It feels like it's drawing a lot of influences from a lot of different places. So it doesn't feel as though you're getting this, oh, they just wish they could make this game. This is a fresh and fun side-scrolling beat 'em up, which also feels ridiculous to say, but it's one that I've had a lot of fun exploring, playing the mechanics, trying the different characters, feeling like it is something that I can conquer while it also beats me into the ground for yet another run.
Yeah, this is one of those games that I played also that I'm like, this is such a great game. That is not for me. It's funny, every roguelike or roguelite that I play after Hades 1 proves to me that Hades was a special formula. And I didn't mind that it was a roguelike, but would have been perfectly fine if it wasn't. I even find that friction with Hades 2, a game that I played a little bit of this year, but didn't find the same hooks. Not to say they're not good games. And Absalom was another one of them that I played for a couple hours, thought was really cool, is gorgeous, incredible, incredible design. But I decided, unless I can find someone to play with, is absolutely not for me. I think it's definitely a fun co-op experience. Might be something worth maybe both of us trying to stream together next year or something.
I was about to say, we should probably do a run or two.
But I did enjoy what it provided and understand why it's being lauded as a pretty incredible game. Just for me, as someone who mostly engaged with it solo, I kind of fell off of. But it, like, again, genre fusion is a thing we say more and more. And I would have never thought to put these two together, but it works so beautifully in Absalom.
I didn't realize that that was an ideal of an experience that I needed until I started playing Absalom. It's fun trying the different characters. You know, when I play with Greg, we kind of have the characters that we always pick, but it is still fun to switch it up and play and see what we can unlock. We should definitely try a little bit of online time together, Matt, because I think there's more to mine in it. And not everything needs to be a roguelike experience. Looking at a lot of games that have a huge time commitment to them, ones that allow for, yeah, you could spend hundreds of hours here. I'm just asking for 10 minutes right now. Feels pretty good.
For sure. It reminds me that there was another beat 'em up that came out at the end of this year that I played a little bit of, but didn't get far. Marvel's Cosmic Invasion, which is the new Marvel beat 'em up. Love what I played of it. Played the first couple levels. Definitely going to explore more of it in 2026. I want to pick it up on the PlayStation because that's where my other beat 'em ups live. That's where I have the Turtles one that this same studio did.
Yeah.
But definitely an awesome, more traditional beat 'em up with a ton of characters that I enjoyed a little bit of what I played, but didn't get far enough to like put it anywhere on my lists.
Yeah, I played through the demo online with some friends and haven't gotten the full version yet, but I plan to. I think that'll be a 2026 for me too.
Moving on to my number 4. Now we're into the nitty gritty. This order that I've settled on changed 5 times in the last 3 days. My number 4 is Fretless, The Wrath of Riften. So I played more RPGs this year than I think I've played in any given year. So many of them new. My top 4 games are all RPGs. It's crazy. I can't think of a year where that's happened before. But
Amazing.
my number 4, Fretless: The Wrath of Riften. Since the moment Geoff and I got hands-on with it at PAX East, I knew this was a game that I was going to bend over backwards for. I was lucky enough to get code for it, lucky enough to review it. It is a turn-based RPG where you use timed hits on the rhythm. If you know anything about me, beyond being a video game nerd, I am a music nerd, much like Geoff, and nothing gets me hyped faster than a video game that implements rhythm game elements. It's why Hi-Fi Rush was one of my top games a few years back.
Yeah.
And I am waiting with bated breath for that sequel that I hope eventually comes. It just hits. The music is incredible. Some incredible indie rock artists have all been included on it. The boss themes are incredible. The crux of this game that really blew me away is that not only do you get 4 different instruments over the course of the game that change the mechanically how you play, but it also changes the battle music in the regular minion battles based on the instrument you're using. Acoustic guitar is indie folk, synthesizer is techno-y kind of synth rock, bass guitar is funky bass, 8-string guitar is heavy metal. And all the mechanics are different. You choose cards that are basically different tabs for different moves. You create your deck. So it's also a deck builder, a turn-based timed hits RPG, and a rhythm game. I was blown away by it. It's got a silly narrative that actually cuts to the core of the indie music scene and signing with a major label and tackles it in a fun way. It is one of the coolest RPGs I think I've ever played. I already want to replay it, but I'm trying to hold out for a possible console port to play it on console. I think it is probably one of the most incredible RPGs I've ever played. It was, of course, developed by Ritual Studios, published by Playdigious. I can't gush about this game enough. If Rob Scallon, who we did a great interview with, and we want to do a longer form interview with as well at some point, but like, this is based on a world he created within his YouTube videos that I'm not even that super familiar with. And yet I still got sucked into this narrative, the gameplay. It's got cool pixel art that looks somewhere between like the Atari 2600 and the Nintendo, but also is way more detailed than that. There are tons of musical nerdy references, really cool locations, bizarre bosses based on instruments. It's just, I could gush about this game for hours. It's probably coming up in the near future as a side quest episode, but I think I want to do a replay first. Just a brilliant game that if you have not played is absolutely worth your time, especially if you're a music nerd. But even if you're not a music nerd and just like a cool turn-based RPG, I cannot recommend it enough.
It's a lot of fun to play. I unfortunately fell off of it over the course of the year because other things came up, but I am due to revisit it. I didn't play far enough to justify putting it on my list, but the demo was amazing. Getting to talk about it was so much fun. You absolutely do not have to have any previous knowledge of anything to enjoy the world that is being created here. It's a sense of whimsy and fun that doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, totally.
My number 4 is Megabonk. Speaking of whimsy and strangeness. For Matt and I, as a small outlet that we are to judge games for the Indie Game Awards, we did our best to kind of divide and conquer a little bit, play through a lot of games, as well as try to give each one their due, but not get too lost in the amount of time playing them. Megabonk made that very, very hard to put down. Surprisingly enough, everything I've been talking about roguelikes this whole time, I don't play Vampire Survivors. And I don't play a lot of Vampire Survivor-like games. This was touted as 3D Vampire Survivors. Cool, great. It's a lot of fun. And it is a testament to what small development teams, solo developers can do when it comes to unification of vision. If you have a very large team all bringing things, you get a strange kitchen sink that feels disjointed. If you have a small team or a solo developer, you can have a kitchen sink approach that is focused by the singular lens that is viewing it. This game unlocks strange weapons, weird characters, wild just everything, but manages to feel cohesive the entire time because it is a Vampire Survivors game. So you aren't going to win, you're just going to succeed, not win. Those are different things. You need to unlock stuff, you need to finish quests. You unlock things by the sheer virtue of playing. No run is wasted. And you are going to find favorites, whether it's a monkey with sunglasses on a skateboard that throws bananas, whether you are Mega Chad who just kills people with bad vibes, whatever's going on, whatever you unlock and whatever you find, I was feeling delighted. And even if it wasn't something that was to my preference, there's enough going on there. The core gameplay loop is satisfying. I'm encouraged to play lesser favored characters and ideas to unlock other things and see what else I can find. And I find my experience evolving from run to run. It was not something where anytime I died, I got frustrated. It was simply, all right, rack them up. Let's try again. Maybe I'll try that character again. Maybe I'll be the skeleton. Who knows?
So when Geoff and I were playing through games for the Indie Game Awards, we split the list. And I purposely gave Geoff Megabonk because I knew I didn't want to fall down that rabbit hole. As someone who has still never played Vampire Survivors, but has been curious about it and wanted to play a game like this, I'm definitely going to, I think, try and explore at least one or two of these games in 2026 because I would really like to get a sense of the vibe. People have a lot of these games and I've always been curious. And I've heard that Megabonk is like the ludicrous version of that in the goofiest way. And
yeah.
And I like Goofy a lot, so I think it's something that I may engage with, but it's so cool to see this thing. It's always cool when a solo dev breaks through the mold and we get to see stuff like this, and Animal Well, Jump to the Top, Gigasword, solo devs getting to really break through and show some really cool stuff. So definitely on my list to check out in the future. Moving on to number 3. My number 3 is a game that has a complicated review cycle. Some people love it, some people hate it. But there's never been a Pokemon game more genetically engineered to be one of my favorite games ever. My number 3 is Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, Pokemon Legends ZA is a direct sequel to Pokemon X. For those who know me and know how much I love Pokemon, Pokemon X and Y is my favorite Pokemon game and story ever. And Pokemon Legends Arceus, the first in the Legends series, was one of my favorite modern Pokemon games. So when the next Legends game was also going to be a direct sequel to my favorite Pokemon game, there was not a snowball's chance in hell I wasn't going to love it. And while it's not a perfect game, it's a caveat we unfortunately have with a lot of Pokemon games lately, it is the perfect Pokemon game for me. It is easily one of my favorite Pokemon games I've ever played. It has its flaws, but it doesn't matter. When you find a favorite game, again, as we've talked about many times before, this is a perfect example of every game is somebody's favorite. It doesn't matter quality, doesn't matter length, style, whatever. Someone will love basically every game that's out there. And this is one of my favorites of the year. It's why it's number 3. Blown away by the story. Follows up on, again, one of my favorite narratives in Pokemon. It has a new battle mechanic where it's more real time. For me, it feels like the first time I ever needed to use defensive and debuff spells because now your attacks, instead of having a number of uses, have a cooldown. And so while I'm waiting for my 2 damage attacks to come off cooldown, I'll use Harden, I'll use Tail Whip or whatever else. Some of my favorite Pokemon are in this. I haven't been reunited with Vanillux in many games, and so I was happy to have my Ice Cream Boy back. I don't care if he's basic. I love him, and he's delicious. This game had some of the most graphically impressive cutscenes in any Pokemon game ever, and there's still no voice acting. And while I understand why, it does feel weird because these are fully acted cutscenes with hyper detailed models and text bubbles. It looks weird. But that said, I really love this game. I was obsessed with it. I'm currently playing the DLC. And while I will agree that the way they announced the DLC before the game had even launched, it made it sound like they were restricting certain things behind the game, but it's only certain mega evolutions, and that the DLC then got pushed up in release, and the practices around all of it was really murky and not great and worth talking about. Nothing's perfect. Things can only be perfect in a vacuum. Life affects and infects how we play these games. And I will be talking about that a lot with my number 1 choice too. Ultimately, I love this game. I'm playing through the DLC now. It is one of my favorite Pokemon games because I got to return to a place I never thought I'd get to go back to. It makes me want to replay X. Xerneas is my favorite legendary and is in my top 6, my core 6 Pokemon team. So to get to use that giant deer-looking motherfucker again, who in this game takes up half my screen when he runs around with me, which actually makes him very difficult to use in an action gameplay setting because I can't see shit.
But it feels correct.
It does feel correct. I really love this game. And while I don't disparage anyone who didn't like this game, had issues with it, like we were talking about Gigasword before, this is genetically engineered to be Matt's new favorite Pokemon game because of all that went into it. And so that's why it's at my number 3.
As somebody who did take issue with a lot of the ways it was announced and who really enjoyed playing the demo of it at PAX West, I am going to get to it. I am going to pick it up at some point, but it took a back burner. And in the meantime, I am currently replaying Pokemon X. Still holds up.
Hell yeah.
My number 3, we can finally talk about Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo.
Oh, man, this game. Talk about a game that I think you clocked at East before I did, and you were talking about it. I didn't get to play it. But then we got the press email for it and I went, what the fuck is this? And you're basically like, Matt, this is that game I was talking about.
Yeah, I was just like, do it, do it, do it, do it.
So Geoff mentioned Zelda Vanias before. This is a top-down Zelda game with Metroidvania elements. We got 2 of those this year.
Right.
Different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the most beautifully designed pixel art games I've ever seen. It's got a fun story. There's something so definitive about the gameplay. I mean, Geoff knows I'm a sucker for a top-down Zelda-like. I mean, I loved Eastward when it came out. This is another one of those, basically, but with more exploration where the map is a Metroidvania, not the dungeons, which I think is really unique. I was just completely shocked and blown away by this game. I have to look up the Pocket Trap. I'd never heard of them before, but this is one of those games that like makes me a fan for life, and we'll look forward to whatever they make next.
It is a game that in its aesthetics, in its humor, in its vibe and everything is very Game Boy Advanced, even in its color palette, in the best possible ways. It is a Zelda-like, but it is also a Star Tropics-like, if you're at all a fan of that. The way that sort of the screen-to-screen feels. There's intangibles about it where if you've never played Star Tropics, describing it's not going to help. If you have played Star Tropics, here you go. I've said this on other calls before, more games need yo-yos as important items. It's one of those impractical things that, it was a weapon in ancient times. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It's fun to play with, and video games allow us to kind of take those, that's absurd, that's a corner case. Well, I've designed a world full of corner cases. You can now bounce the yo-yo off of angles and clear a room in a single go. And doesn't that feel good to do as both action and puzzle? The way that it marries solves with platforming, with combat is truly something special and should be noted, and it's why it's so high on my list.
Also, another game with a banger soundtrack. I mean, a lot of the games that came out this year had some incredible soundtracks. Most of the games that are in my top 10 are because they have some of the best music in gaming and they were great games to boot. And this is no exception. And like, this is a game that fell off my list and then came back on my list, not for lack of quality, but again, I listed a ton of games in my honorable mentions that are also incredible. We got a new Shantae game this year and it's not in my top 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's just unprecedented. And I think it's just the fact that a game like Pipistrello, I'm so glad it got its flowers at the IGAs. People are taking notice of it later in the year. I feel like it came out under the radar, but I think it is going to be one of those classic indie games that people will revisit in years to come and go, oh, what about this game? This game was pretty great. Also, some of the best accessibility features I've seen in a video game ever. You can reduce your damage, turn off your damage, make yourself do more damage, give yourself extra bonuses, money, whatever, more hearts, unlock all your health. All of this stuff to make the game playable for you. If you're stuck on a boss and it's really a dead end, instead of going and exploring to try and find more heart containers and build up your health, you can just turn off damage and get through the boss and move on to the next thing. Yes, it breaks the game, but that's for the player to decide. And giving those options makes a game like this where people might hit a hard wall and actually be able to progress and see the thing through to the end and get a sense of accomplishment and completion. And I think that giving the player that kind of customization, those are my favorite accessibility options, where the gamer can really customize the experience to however they want it to be and still have the challenge that's right for them.
And it still feels very in line with the game itself.
Yes. It's funny, this year we have a lot less in common, which I think also because I think both you and I played more different games this year than we've ever before.
There was a lot of times we'd get review codes and you said you're going to write up something. I'm like, I'll play it a little bit to do it, but I don't feel the same push, so I'm going to try something else. And so we kind of, again, we cover a lot more ground here. I like it.
Yeah, totally. Moving on to number 2. My number 2 is Demon School. Geoff and I first played it at separate PAXs, which I think is very funny, and then both interviewed Brandon, the lead dev, at 2 separate times, which is also very fun. It's just one of those games that when you play it, you go, this is something special. So excited for this game. And when it came out and then got delayed and then finally came out and I finally got hands-on with it, I've never become more obsessed with a game. So Geoff often talks about their love of the Persona series. It's a series that I have found love with and really loved 5, Royal, and have played some of 3 and 4 and really like them, but just don't get hooked in the same way. I
Right.
have to kind of convince myself to go back to them. I found that love in Demon School, which does take notes from games like Persona, as well as Buffy the TV series and other things. I wanted to do every daily task. I wanted to build relationships with every character. I wanted to smooch people, which is important in games. But also, this is a tactics game that again does tactics differently. The most damage you can do is 4. The most health you can have is 5. The most damage the enemies can do is like 3 or 4. It's all low numbers. It becomes a puzzle game. And I always felt so smart. You have a limited amount of turns to get the highest score. If you go over that, you just get less of the items you use to unlock abilities, which I had an overabundance of by the end of the game anyway. There are no levels, there's no experience, there's just currencies, and you unlock abilities. And when you unlock them, you assign them to different characters, and that's it. There's no leveling, there's no worried about experience. You can handle battles at the beginning of the game that you can 5 or 6 weeks into the game. The music for this game is crazy.
Yes.
The composer Kurt made not only different songs for different days of the week, but also days of the week when you're investigating, days of the week when you're in battle. The prep phase for a battle of the day of the week has a different song from the action portion of that same battle.
And you're going to spend a lot of time in the prep section.
It's just such a brilliantly designed soundtrack. The graphics are incredible. The character art and character portraits are some of the most expressive character portraits I've ever seen in a video game. The main character, Faye, is complex in a way that I was not expecting. The story of this game is basically an episode or 2 of Buffy, Monster of the Week. That's how it starts. There's so much heart, there's so much relationship building, getting to know the characters, very similar to what I've heard of a lot of the Persona games as well.
Yes.
You can meet it where it lives. You can get really in depth, nitty gritty, get to know the characters, do all the side quests, or you can just play the main narrative and blow through it. But either way, it's a deep and satisfying experience. Necrosoft has designed an incredible game. I am a fan of Necrosoft for life. Eastward Games has always put out bangers. We've talked about a lot of their games in the past as a publisher. Shout out to Haley from Stride. There was hiccups with the code. The game got delayed. I had to wait for the Switch code. And Haley was an all-star dealing with all of my very stupid questions. So shout out to Haley at Stride and all of the folks over at Stride. But like, this is a game I expected to like. It is often that Geoff and I will play a game that we demo and then we'll enjoy later. It is a lot more rare where it becomes one of our favorite games of all time because there are just so many games. But this and games like Off this year have made me go, I want to talk about what makes a game your favorite game of all time. How does a game achieve that? And what is the criteria for every person or different people of why games get there? And games like Demon School have made, and my number one, which we'll get to, have made me rethink what it means to be a favorite game of all time and an incredible RPG. I'm a tactics sicko now, through and through. I'm playing Unicorn Overlord next year. I'm calling it. We're making a beeline for tactics games in 2026. And I'm only going to play a couple RPGs because I'm realistic. But like Demon School is up there with games like The Messenger and Shovel Knight, genre defining indie titles not to be missed. And I absolutely adored it.
The time I've spent with it has been absolutely spectacular. It's one that I started playing it when we got our codes, and then we had to start getting ready for the IGAs, and I wasn't going to be the one writing a review for it. So I've been getting back to it, and everything you've said, I can only second and be excited about delving into further. Demoing it at whichever PAX I demoed it at, and realizing those ways that they've kept the numbers simple, but they have kept the strategy accessible but devious. You prep everything sort of in an order you can kind of undo and redo, which I love in modern tactics games. When all's ready, all set and done, you activate and get to watch it happen. The setup and knockdown of it all, and sort of the day-to-day of planning and execution, graphics, design, music, it is very united unto itself and has an identity all its own.
It's also one of the most diverse casts in video games ever. One of the gayest games I've ever played in the best way. It is so thoughtfully designed and created. It's approachable for new players. There's stuff to dig into as a veteran player. If you are someone who prides yourself on playing like the tentpole indie games, I think this is up there in that upper echelon and is absolutely worth your time.
Fantastic. Well, my number 2 is a differently methodical game, Blueprints.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've said in plenty of places that this game didn't hit for me the way it hit for other people. That said, even playing it for 2 hours, I saw the design of this game and went, oh, I get it.
Blueprints came out in the first half of the year, and it was one of those titles that, for me, I was hearing a lot of people recommend it in general, recommend it to me, talk about it in terms that very much intrigued me. I was very incuriated, I suppose. I grew up playing a lot of point and click games, and so the notion of finding where item goes, how find solution, attach everything, rub things on things till effect, cool. There's been a lot of digital ink spilled about point and click games getting in their own way as far as heady puzzles. Blueprints does a very nice job of the roguelike structure that feels kind of like a board game of drawing the rooms and piecing together your way through. But every time you go in there, there are puzzles to be solved, sometimes puzzles to be found before they can be solved. Information that you learn early on that you need to hold on to. This was a game that inspires keeping a notebook of notes. You need to write down things about different rooms and how things are fitting together. And all of them are little puzzles that add up together to create greater solutions. There is the goal of getting 2 credits and getting to the stated goal of the game, as well as sort of unfurling and uncovering the story that goes on within it. You are the heir to your great uncle's estate that has a different layout every day and that is 45 rooms, and you must find the 46th room. There is so much to discover in there, and it is that sort of rich person, generic nation intrigue of politics and wealth and nobility and what could be found and who can be trusted and what is where, that also never has a sense of something is out to get you. There's no time limit. Whether within any room you're in, whatever day you are doing, you can take as many days as you want to find room 46. It's not one of these where it's like, if you don't find it in 30 days, screw you, start again. You can take your time with it. Talking about accessibility and talking about taking your own pace, you can. And I appreciate that. And I definitely, when I first started playing, had to worry about, oh no, what is the upper limit on this? There is none. Certainly none that I found and none that anyone's told me. And I am reasonably certain that you can just go at it at your own pace. The estate will be waiting for you the next day, whenever you get back to it. It doesn't have nearly as many like big clicks or like big motions that play out to tell you you've solved a puzzle. It's a very self-propelled mystery in that way. And I kind of appreciate that. Not necessarily having to fit key in slot in an abstract kind of way, but look around, write down the notes and compare them. That has a self-propelled sense of discovery that is, for me, very satisfying.
You can spend 10 minutes with it and completely understand what it's going for and know if it's for you or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game I do want to revisit. I want to give another shot, but ultimately, I can see why it was such a hit. It is fascinating. The design is gorgeous. It looks beautiful. The discovery is incredible. The first time you solve a puzzle in one room that the clue was in 10 rooms ago or 3 days ago, all of that is really satisfying. And Dagobah did something really great with this game. Look, it coined a new genre term that I don't agree with, Metroidvania. I think that, I mean, genre names is a whole other can of worms.
It's a cute pun. I don't think it's accurate.
No, but I do think that the something fascinating about Blueprints is just, again, it's one of those indie games that broke through. I mean, look, whether we want to celebrate the Game Awards or not, the mainstream Game Awards had way more indie games in major categories than ever before.
Yep.
And I think that's a sign of what's to come in the video game landscape as we get more frustrated with certain AAA developers and more indie games have the ability to do more with less. I'm so glad that Blueprints was in the conversation. I'm definitely going to give it some more time. But even if I don't find I love it as much as others do, I think it is absolutely a game worthy of the conversation it's been getting and is such a fascinating and unique take on this kind of puzzle game and discovery game that's different from Lorelei and the Laser Eyes and tons of other notebook requiring Botany Manor, which we played the other year. Like all of these puzzle games that have become mainstream contenders in the indie space because they're just doing something a little bit different.
I mean, look, Resident Evil proved to us that sometimes you just want to explore a mansion, okay? Maybe with
Yeah.
zombies, maybe with changing rooms, maybe with nice flowers. But you know what? We don't have that sense of, I don't know, prestige of fancy people's homes that we used to. But damn it, in a video game, we just want to explore a mansion. Is that so wrong?
The deep-seated need of any queer person to just want to explore a mansion.
Please unleash me onto your grounds. I can be trusted. I just want to get into every little cranny and open every door. I can be trusted. Release me onto your grounds.
All right, here we are at the top of the mountain, at the top of our lists. My number one game, surprising absolutely no one, is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, this is a game that has come under some controversy recently. It did sweep the Game Awards, which I was unsurprised about. Debut game, indie game. We're not arguing that on this podcast. For all fits and purposes, it's an indie game.
Yep.
Cleaned up on the awards, and then won both of its awards in the IGAs. Then they came forward saying that in the development of the game, they did use some generative AI, and they removed most of it before release. Some of it came through, but ultimately the final game now doesn't have any more generative AI assets in it. They have removed them all. However, the IGAs have a very strict policy that if you use generative AI at any point, production, release, doesn't matter, you are exempt from the IGAs. They bring this to every studio as they're nominated. The studios have to agree to it, which they did. So they had their awards revoked. And there was some controversy about it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Geoff and I stand with the IGAs and their decision.
Yes.
It is complicated to make these choices and will only get harder as generative AI use gets murkier. I give Sandfall a ton of credit for coming clean. I wish they didn't take so long. I wish they didn't lie about it, but they did eventually come clean, and I have to laud them for at least doing that. They knew what would happen when they did it, and they did it anyway. But we stand with the IGAs. They have very specific rules from the outset for all of the nominees. So if you break those rules, it makes sense to revoke the awards. Full stop.
Yeah.
There's no argument there.
There's no call for it to be revoked on the Game Awards or in anything other than the IGAs within the criteria that have been set there. As somebody who works as a voice actor, having to submit things under specific rules and format is key. If you don't follow those, well, you know what? There's a lot of other really good stuff out there. It doesn't matter how good you are. Whatever you feel about generative AI, the use of it was not disclosed in submission for the IGAs, in nomination for the IGAs, and that is a cut and dry thing. And so that is also just as important as the usage therein.
Yes. And while the use of generative AI has complicated my feelings towards the game, I would be a liar if I said it wasn't my game of the year.
And I'm still going to play through the game, damn it.
Right. And as many smarter writers online have said, this stuff is only going to get murkier. It's very easy to have a hard personal stance. It's much harder to just sweep clean, say none of this. I don't want it, especially as more studios are probably going to divulge it less, as it has been nothing but bad PR when they do divulge. That said, this is one of my favorite games ever. It's one of my favorite RPGs ever. It's one of the most brilliant stories about grief that I've ever experienced in my life, full stop. It has some of the best voice acting. Jennifer English absolutely deserved the Game Award that she won. Mael's performance carries this game as much as there were other great performances this year and other great performances in this game. She does incredible work here as someone who I liked as Shadowheart and thought did a good job as that character, goes above and beyond in this role. I could sit here and talk about the gameplay or the design or the story, all stuff that you've read elsewhere and I've talked about elsewhere. The reason this is my game of the year is because this is the first turn-based RPG that my spouse, Sarah, ever played and filled in a gap in knowledge of understanding why I love video games. While I was at PAX East, she had started playing it, called me at one point to just check in, see how she's doing, chat for a bit, says to me, Matt, I'm really stuck. I had to leave this dungeon because I'm not a high enough level, so I went to go grind some enemies and grind experience so I could level up and then go take on this dungeon again. And I went, who the fuck are you? What happened to my spouse? She speaks the lingo that I speak. She understands why I love games, and more importantly, understands why the storytelling is so important to me. And while there are a lot of reasons why I love this game, my number one reason for loving this game is it brought me closer to my life partner, who I've been married to for a glorious 10 going on 11 years, filled in gaps that talking about games could never fill in, that experiencing games did. And also, what a first turn-based RPG to play. Holy moly.
Yeah.
it's a high bar, but it also then gives her the pieces she needs to play a game like a Persona 5 Royal or Metaphor ReFantazio or so many other incredible RPGs, a Sea of Stars mechanically. I love this game for a lot of reasons, and chat with me on a Discord server on social media and I'll tell you all the other reasons. But getting to connect with my partner in that way and talk about this game endlessly. There are choices at the end, why those choices matter. How did that choice affect you? What did you explore? Who's your favorite character? What was your favorite character to play as? Whose story did you like best? All of that stuff. It's fulfilling to talk to my friends like Geoff and Dave and many others about that. Folks in the indie game community, all of the folks who are listening, Rick, Eric, I can't list everybody.
Right.
But to talk to my partner about it, especially when she doesn't play games as much as I do and get to see how special they are and why they mean so much to me, is something I will value above and beyond anything else and will make this game more important to me than many other games because of that. And so that's why, among many other reasons, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is my game of the year.
And those are all fantastic reasons. It is a hell of a game, and one that I have not played all the way through. And I do have very, very strong feelings about generative AI. They're not so strong that the usage here is going to stop me from playing through the game or from enjoying it. It is, in ways that generative AI did not touch, a beautifully designed game in its gameplay, in its story, in the world that is being explored. That is worth its time. Whether or not it qualifies for awards, it is still a hell of an experience.
I think a game like this is going to continue to push Geoff and I to have frank and more realistic conversations about generative AI. We have our stances, but again, it's like what I talked about before with Rockstar. You can't just be right or wrong, except with making a Game Boy out of death machines. There's a right or wrong there. But for other stuff, it's much murkier. And Geoff and I want to explore that and talk about it with you. Because again, generative AI is part of our life right now. All we can do is talk about it, engage with it, and share how we feel about it. And so games like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 are giving us an avenue to do that, as well as other games. So thank you in engaging in that conversation with us, whether here in the Discord or wherever else, because I think it's only going to become more important to talk about in 2026.
What we can do about it is discuss it, define it, and in my case, avoid it as much as humanly possible.
Correct.
Now, my number one does not have as deep of a story, but it does go pretty deep because it's Ball Pit. Matt has referenced several games that were designed to get them. Ball Pit was made for me. This is my hole. It was made for me. I will come out the other side horrifying and joyous. Ball Pit it's the last game on my list, so it's the last roguelike. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It is an Arkanoid dungeon crawler. I needed this. I wanted this. I didn't know anybody else was going to ever make this, but thank goodness Kenny-san did. It is a game that allows for, yet again, that one more run kind of feeling. A run is only the stage. You're not going to be lost for hours and hours unless you do run after run after run. It removes friction through all stages of the gameplay experience. Between runs, you're building up your settlement at the big apparatus that goes down there. So these buildings that you put up unlock new characters. They level up your characters to make future runs faster, better, more efficient, easier, whatever the case may be. And the way that you build them is you set them down and you basically play a round of pachinko. So you are still getting ball launching gameplay in the city builder portion as well as in the dungeon crawling part of it. It is a ball launching game no matter how the ball launching affects the game. It's one that doesn't require you to be everything with everyone. There is a certain amount of, I think there's something like 15 or 16 characters that you can have when everyone's unlocked. If you want the big achievement pieces, just beat it with 10 of them. You're playing it a bunch and you're beating it with a bunch of them, but they don't require it for everything for everyone. Did I beat it with everybody? Yes, there are things, there's stats you can boost if you do. You build trophies and it gets better with each character you beat it with. So I can beat it on each of the different speeds and those count. I could beat it in different permutations and those count. It encourages the exact kind of grind like that makes my brain go burr. And it is one of those games that I think most people can enjoy on some level. It may not be for everybody, but this was the game for me. The music that was for each of the stages, it never got boring for me. I had the town music in my head for a week and a half, I swear to God, and it didn't bother me. It was fun the whole time. The soundtrack's fantastic. The gameplay is great. The design of the characters is so odd. And there is a sense of humor to all of it that isn't necessarily like in your face or big jokes, but there's just a little bit of like, everybody had fun doing this. And I had a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah, this is another game that like I hadn't heard of, and then suddenly everyone was talking about. And Jeff and I were lucky enough to get review codes for it. We're hoping to chat with Kenny's son in the new year, but it's one of those games that I booted up also and it's probably fine. Oh no.
Yep.
I'm in trouble.
You avoided it for a little bit, and then you messaged me after you started. I think you sent me the Ralph Wiggum, haha, I'm in danger.
Basically, yeah. I mean, everything Jeff said is true. It's really an incredible game. I didn't get far enough to finish it. I do want to spend more time with it. But the thing about roguelikes also with me is like Hades. Hades took me, I don't know, a year and a half to finish because I take my time after I finish a run. Sometimes I'm satisfied and I put it down. And so Ball Pit is in that vein. And so I will probably someday in the far future finish it. But for now, every time I boot it up and play a run, I have a good time. And that's all that matters.
Nice.
But visually, it's doing interesting stuff. I love this era of like weirdo PS1 graphics that we're in, where things look chonky and weird and blurry. As someone who recently played through the majority of the Gex trilogy, like those fuzzy polygons, there's something really satisfying to that aesthetic that is lost. And this is only emulating that in a way that it's not really that undetailed or fuzzy,
No.
but it evokes that vibe.
Well, and at the time when we were getting those graphics fresh, we were also figuring out how to move in 3D spaces. And having throwback graphics that are pixel graphics, yes, we both of us have talked ourselves blue in the face about how that forces a deliberate art style, which makes it more timeless. And this low poly texture idea allows for everything we've learned about moving and controlling in a 3D space without having to worry as much about how good it looks, and in fact leaning into, yet again, a deliberate art style. And I think that is making for really good indies because we're not, I don't want to say we're not worrying as much, but we are able to focus differently.
Yeah, I mean, there are games we played in the graphics and design category this year just for the IGAs that are doing things I've never seen before, that are playing on those bizarro old graphics that just are doing some incredible things. And I love the look of Ball Pit. The music is incredible. The mechanics, like I love Arkanoid. I grew up playing Arkanoid. So the satisfying bouncing when the ball gets stuck behind the enemies as they creep closer to you and you're starting to panic because they're starting to destroy stuff from behind and then slowly getting back to the front and still saving you from getting clobbered. Like all of that stuff is just so really satisfying. And I think it is so fun to see what people can do when you take roguelike and dungeon crawler and still make something that nobody was planning for.
And this one, with each of the characters you unlock, they all play differently. Some wildly differently, some somewhat differently. I find if a game has too much of a kitchen sink approach, it can get a little tiresome.
Yeah.
I think because of the nature of a gameplay loop of Ball Pit, any one of those characters, if they're not your style, you never have to touch them again. And I think that allows for a wilder exploration and yet again, a kitchen sink approach through a narrower lens, creating a cohesive feel.
Incredible. Well, I think it's really fun that our lists were a lot more diverse this year. I think that that'll happen more and more as Jeff and I try and cover as much as we can as two people, sometimes three people. That's our top 10 of the year. This is our first pod of the year, and we will be back in 2 weeks with an interview with the incredible Jack Breen of Gigasword. So you can look forward to that. We've got a bunch of stuff in the hopper. As of when we're recording, the current voting for our next console retrospective is up. If you would like to break the tie between the PSP and the Wii U, please go on the website.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And thanks for being on this ride. We love doing this. Y'all are the main reason we do it. We're always going to try and innovate, and we're going to fail sometimes. We are trying to make the Patreon experience and just the casual engagement with this podcast experience better for you and better for us. So thank you for your patience as we figure out what we're doing. Thank you for your actual dollars, and thank you for your ratings, reviews, and interactions online. It's a pleasure to interact with all of you and talk about the stuff we cover and make this podcast. And it's going to continue to grow and change in different ways we expect, ways we don't. We're so happy to have you on this ride with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for engaging and listening and talking with us and everything else. And so at this point, we put it to you. What were some of your games of the year? What were your highs and lows of gaming? Why didn't we talk about Hades 2 at all? And why are you mad about that? Or why are you happy about that? How do you like hearing about the games that Matt and I play? I do plan on posting some more in the Discord about it, and I will start my own Blue Sky thread about the games I've beat. So at the end of 2026, when I'm making this list, it's going to be a lot easier to remember what I played. This helps all of us. But let us know all of that. Get in touch with us. There's so many great ways to reach out. We are Fun and Games Pod on all social media that we are active upon, which as of this episode is Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of previous episodes, what you'd like us to talk about, and who you'd like us to talk with on future episodes. This particular kind of episode, more than ever, is the yes, please do on this. Send to us your finished lists of top 10s or games that you've played, whatever the case may be. You can visit certainpov.com and find not only other fantastic Certain POV podcasts, but a permanent invite link to our Discord server where we do have a gaming log channel where we do write up short reviews and little pictures and everything of the games that we've beaten throughout the year, whether they are brand new for the year or getting back to an old backlog game. It's a great way to celebrate the games we enjoy and talk about them with a lot of people we like hanging out with. If you like what Matt and I are doing and have the means or desire to support us, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/funandgamespod. If you're part of the free tier, you can participate in the polls to vote on our next console retrospective, be part of the RSS feed for everything we're working on, have a one-stop shop of all of the reviews we're writing and things we're trying out. We are going to be making a little more exclusive content for higher tiers as part of the plan, but more about that if we actually go through with it. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for your support, and especially we want to shout out those on the high scoreboard. Today, the high scoreboard is Alex Lavelle, Case Aiken, Daniel Nyden, Sean Bowen, Film It Yourself, Patrick Edwards, Alejandro Alves, Curly Bright, and Chris Copeline. Thank you so much for your support. Please enter your initials, and please rank your initials against other initials in a top 10 list format. Thank you.
If you don't have the dollars to throw at us, there is a free tier, like Geoff said, or another free way that you can support us is going to platforms like Pocket Casts or Apple or any other platform that allows you to rate and review a podcast and rate and review us. Allows other folks to find this podcast, and when they're searching for top 10s of the year, they can find this lovely conversation as well as many, many, many others.
And whether you have a top 10 list that you want to share, whether you've got beef with ours, whether you've got beef with top 10 lists in general, or if this is your first episode of Fun and Games, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you. This is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Geoff Moonen.
And I'm Matty Case Norgeddon.
Happy New Year and happy gaming. Hey.
Oh, hey, Geoff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
Certainpov.com.